Are you a scaling SaaS founder?
Ready to make the leap from leading a team to leading an organization? Join us each week as we refill your think tank with actionable tips and strategies from great business minds you know and those who don't know yet. This is SaaS Fuel with your host, 5-time entrepreneur, SaaS founder, and globetrotting adventurer, Jeff Maines.
Welcome back to the SaaS Fuel podcast, where great SaaS companies make every customer journey feel like front row seats at the Super Bowl. I'm your host, Jeff Maines. I help B2B SaaS founders like you grow from traction to scale. Here, growth is more than just numbers. It's about crafting a future-proof company, premium valuation, and leaders who build a business of significance while living epic, adventurous lives. Earlier this week, I called an insurance company. It was one of the big ones. And the only worst call I can think of is maybe a 3-hour wait on hold to talk to a human at the IRS. Extremely painful. So I called the insurance company and got lost in a maze of redirects and then the message, "We're at lunch, leave a voicemail," and a couple of clueless reps who tried to transfer me to someone, in that department. And after an hour of frustration and a few dropped calls, 3 tries later, I finally reached someone who sincerely wanted to help me. It's a customer service hero. 5 minutes later, problem solved, and back to business as usual. But in that moment, I was really reminded how much customer-centric culture matters. And this company honestly could use some work. I won't tell you who it was, but it is a multi-billion-dollar insurance company with 7 million customers, and this was the experience. And, you've probably had the same kind of experiences before. The really good ones and the really bad ones both stand out. Most experiences are somewhere in the mushy middle, very, very forgettable. But it's those great ones and the terrible ones that just stand out. I've seen companies big and small transform their customer experience by embedding service into their DNA. So how do they do that? At the center is creating a truly customer-centric culture. Here's how I've seen it work. First is hiring for customer obsession. And that word choice is very, very specific, obsession. The foundation of a customer-centric culture starts with the people you bring into the company. Seek out team members who are innately curious about customers and their problems. Screen for things like listening skills, empathy, and a drive for delight. And you might be like, all right, wait, Jeff, can't we just train that? And the truth is, occasionally you can. But here's the thing. If customer obsession isn't in their DNA already, that training likely won't stick. This has to come from the inside, not be trained or forced from the outside. There's a famous story about the shoe retailer Zappos. Lots of people wanted to work there, tons of candidates, and they had a really, really good screening process. So they would screen and get them in, and they go through a training process, really, really impressive training. And then at the end of the training, they offered anybody who wanted to, these new hires that they'd put all this time and effort into, $2,000, $2,000 to quit if they didn't share the company's service versus values. Think about that. I mean, these aren't executive positions. $2,000 to just walk away. That's like, 2 or 3 weeks work. That is bold. And it absolutely worked. It ensured that the team was all in, committed to customer focus. I love that extreme commitment. The second is to empower your front lines. Southwest Airlines, Dallas company here, found a really simple way to empower their gate agents to deliver outstanding service. It's almost counterintuitive. The mandate was let them be themselves. So ditching strict corporate rules, which I guess Southwest is kind of known for, but every other company in the industry, that would just like send chills up somebody's spine there. But ditching the strict corporate rules, Southwest gave the employees creative license to connect with customers. And the result, you probably know, industry-leading customer satisfaction results and profits for 30 years running. When the other airlines were going under, disappearing, Southwest has stood the test of time and done really, really well. Another company that comes to mind is Ritz-Carlton. They empower every single employee to solve a problem or take care of a guest up to $500. Now that is serious empowerment. So think about, different roles: doorman, bellman, front desk, janitor, maid. I mean, everyone, no permission, no approval needed. Just solve the issue. And if it's less than that, just take care of it. Don't wait for approval and jump through a bunch of hoops. Just solve the issue. And compare that to some of the retail experiences of waiting for a supervisor to approve a void or to correct a price on something that's scanned up wrong. That may take minutes to do that. And but Ritz Carlson says no. What we want is the problem solved. So just go fix it. And I just love that. So free your team to build rapport and solve problems by eliminating the red tape and micromanaging. Trust them to do right by your customers. And the surprising thing, maybe not so surprising, is they will. And especially if you got step one right. And third, I think we want to lead from the front. Culture flows down from the top. Model customer-centric habits and mindsets. If you expect others to follow, you have to do it yourself. A lot of you use an accounting software called Xero. That's the one I hear, probably as much as QuickBooks. And they're a New Zealand-based SaaS company. They host quarterly customer days where executives take over the support lines to talk directly with the users. Think about that. When's the last time you took a support call? Especially, the larger the organization gets, that really don't do that much anymore. But that's one thing that really reinforces their commitment to understanding consumer needs firsthand, not filtered or through multiple layers of support or tickets or whatever it might be. They're actually having those conversations. So like Xero, put yourself in the customer's shoes as often as possible. It'll inspire your team more than any memo or meeting or even training. Remember, customer obsession isn't achieved through a training course or a memo. It is baked into culture through every single decision, policy, and habit that touches the customer experience. Do that successfully, and you'll earn their loyalty for life. You want to know how SaaS leaders create loyalty for life? Well, come hang out with me and 1,000 other SaaS founders in Austin on March 28th and 29th at SaaS Open. Get an inside look at the future of software and spend time with the people that are making it happen. There'll be 5 different stages with valuable content delivered in short 20-minute segments. Each one is focused on a different role. We've got SaaS founders, CMOs, heads of product, sales, and engineering. The best way to predict the future is to create it. So come do that with us March 28th and 29th. I'll be speaking at a couple of sessions on the 5 monsters SaaS leaders must slay, and doing some live podcast episodes as well. So join me. I'd love to meet you and see you there. You can learn more at saasopen.com and use code CHAMPION2024 when you register and save a couple $100 off your ticket. saasopen.com. Our founder on Tuesday was Michael Kamleitner, founder of 2 SaaS companies, Walls.io and SWAT.io. Michael bootstrapped both companies to large, high-performing teams, executive leadership, and he's been able to step out of day-to-day operations. So some huge lessons on building a great business that doesn't consume the most precious resource you have, and that is you and your time. And our expert guest last week was Brady Jensen, founder of Aggregate Insights. We talked about solving the trust problem between marketing and sales. And if you've ever had an experience where reality in the field doesn't match the playbook that marketing drew up, this is a great episode. And I think we've all had that happen. So if you missed either one of those, go back and give them a listen. My guest today is Kenneth Burke, VP of Marketing for Text Request, a business messaging platform. He's written over 1,000 articles on business growth for dozens of outlets and helped all types of companies from pre-launch startups to billion-dollar businesses connect with their customers and achieve their goals. Welcome, Kenneth Burke. Hey, Kenneth, welcome to SaaS Fuel.
Hey, thank you for having me here.
Tell me a little bit about your background and how you ended up at Text Request.
Yeah, so I always say I got here through serendipity. So I went to school originally for music, ended up with a degree in psychology, the experimental side, went into sales for a couple of years, and then switched into marketing whenever I got tired of cold calling. And along the way, and how I got a text request was a good friend of mine was helping start the company, and I was looking for a switch anyway. And he said, "Hey, come join us. Come do this thing. It's really exciting." And I said, "Sure, that sounds great." Um, and I don't know when this is going to be shared, but January 12th is my 9-year anniversary here, so it's been a crazy little ride.
That's fantastic. I'm sure you've seen a lot of things change into text messaging over the last 9 years as a marketing channel, marketing platform. What does that evolution look like?
Yeah, it has gone from largely, hey, I just need to get a response from people who aren't answering my phone calls. Because really, I mean, SMS marketing is the parent category that everybody knows, but our target customer from day one really, or the first one we found traction with, were small business owners, particularly those in the service industry. So if you think about moving services or pest control and cleaning services, these people who have already built up a good lead funnel of people coming in and expressing interest, but then whenever the business went to follow up with them, they would call and they just couldn't get anybody to pick up or answer a phone call. And so they had, thousands of dollars in business every week that was just disappearing. But we gave them a tool where they could text those customers to get a response, to get a service scheduled, and actually, get that revenue in their wallets. So that was where we started, and then from there, we've seen it obviously grow pretty substantially. Businesses got pretty familiar, pretty comfortable with adding text messaging as another channel, in addition to email or social media or direct mail, even everything else that they use. It's just where people's attention is and has been in their smartphones. And texting is a great way to just pop up, on those smartphones and you get that attention and then use it however you need to. So whether it's just quick customer updates, whether it is for sales or for marketing and promotions, even for hiring or, volunteering, there's all sorts of use cases there. So we've seen it really, spread the entire business world and kind of permeate through every department and every role, which has been really interesting to watch. And then, it got to a point where so many businesses were starting to text for commercial purposes that, regulators have stepped in now and have said, hey, we need to make sure, one, that businesses are legitimate, two, that you're sending qualified traffic, that people are opting into this, that you aren't just spamming folks. And so that's been a pretty significant and impactful change over the last couple of years. That's still, rolling out today. And it's a little bit of a headache for us and for some of our customers, but ultimately it's good because it means, you can send more messages more reliably and know that people are going to actually trust them. So it's really better for everybody.
Yeah. The channel doesn't get diluted or polluted just by spam. I mean, email has really become that way in a large part.
100%.
So you said that initially they were really looking for a response. How has that changed? What are they looking for now? What have you seen as far as like use cases for text messages? Maybe some things that you hadn't thought of that your customers started doing. Like, wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, there's been a bunch of those moments over time. And a lot of people will ask me or ask us, what's the most interesting thing you've seen people text for? And honestly, I think the most interesting one has been texting for bouncy house rentals, like those giant inflatable, kid slides and bouncy houses, just to rent those for an afternoon. I think that's been the most fun or most interesting one. But our customers will text for anything. About the same reason you would text for anything throughout the day. Sometimes it's just to replace a phone call because you've got to call a lot of people and you don't want to do that. So you just send a mass message out and say, "Hey, here's the update. Let me know if you have any questions about it." Sometimes it's replacing invoices and payment requests. So instead of mailing something out, which could cost you, $1 to send, you send a text, and that's a minimal fee. And then you normally get paid faster too, because people see the text instantly and then just go ahead and pay the bill. So that's helpful. A lot of quick updates throughout the day. I mean, we've seen, I'm going a little all over the board here, but logistics companies or brokerages using it for dispatch to say, hey, we've got a load of freight. Can somebody pick it up and move it to this location? Here's the rate for it. All sorts of things.
Yeah, so many great use cases. And it's something, everybody has a phone in their pocket. And it's just a way to communicate. It's a way to reach a market and in a way to get a response. The stats, what is it, like 95% of text messages are read in the first 10 seconds? You hear the ding. We're so conditioned to look at that.
A crazy piece of it too is, at least in my generation, the millennial generation, so many of us leave our phones on silent now, but we're still checking it constantly. We just light up the home screen to see, did we miss anything? Has anything come in? We're so conditioned to check and interact with the next thing. And there's some cons to that. I'm not, we won't lie about that. But you're also able to use that responsibly and ethically as a company to get your message seen and to build deeper relationships with your customers. And that's really powerful.
It is, especially when there's value. And if it's an update, your order is going to be delivered. Here's a receipt. Here's a reminder. So many things have value, and where I wouldn't necessarily go and look at an email, but getting that via text. Even offers. Restaurants, things like that are using text more and more, sending out special offers and things like that. So many ways to add value and keep those connections. So have you seen it's text has become less of a commodity, or less informational, more about building relationships?
I don't know if it's more or less. I would say both are happening a lot of the time. So we do have a lot of customers who share information and don't need a response, and maybe it is that shipping update or that that technician update. Hey, Jimmy's going to be at your house in 20 minutes. Keep an eye out for a white truck. Things like that. They don't need a response, but it's really helpful to see that. And if it went to your email, you would see it 2 days later.
Right. That's exactly right. So you write a lot about marketing, business growth. What are some common pitfalls or challenges you see when companies are trying to use text for marketing, or just in marketing in general?
Common challenge here is going to be not knowing, several. And these don't apply just to text messaging, but one is not knowing exactly what you want to use it for. So you hear from a lot of people, hey, you should be using this channel or this tactic. It's something you should do. And you buy into it because you hear it from smart people who you trust and who are seeing success with it. But you haven't quite figured out what that means for you. And so it's really helpful to take a little bit of extra time, just a couple extra steps, and say, okay, here's a channel we can add into our mix to get people's attention, to get more responses or faster responses if we need. What's a good situation for that? For us, a lot of times it's just if you are going to call down a list of customers about an update or for an offer, an opportunity, you can replace that with a mass text. Sometimes it's replacing check-in calls or customer calls. Because if you can remove small talk, just a few seconds or a couple of minutes times 20, 30, 100, customers a day, that really adds up. And that helps you get a lot of your time back. So just think through that. There's one common pitfall. Another is not knowing how to measure it. From the relatively small, but from the subset of customers we have who end up stopping the text service or stopping texting as a channel because they quote unquote didn't see results. The real reason is because they weren't measuring anything. And, that which gets measured gets improved. And so if it's not going to get measured, it's not going to get improved. You aren't going to be able to see a direct connection or correlation to the actions you're taking to what you're getting in your bank account. And that's going to be problematic no matter what. So whenever you start, look for a metric that you can measure, that you can report on. It might be time saved. It might be speed of response. It might be, if you are an appointment-based business, it might be the number of additional appointments you can keep on the books. But just think through that. So there's a few common pitfalls.
Yeah. What are metrics that the company should be measuring if they're looking at SMS as a channel?
Number of subscriber opt-ins is an easy one. Number of responses or conversions, depending on what your use case is for texting a lot of times. So, a lot of this would apply whether you're an accountant connecting with clients or you're a pest control company. Seasonally, you want to get the word out there, remind people that you have a service that they appreciate, that they just need to, get off the treadmill of life for 15 minutes and schedule a quick call or appointment or service. And so just sending, a seasonal promotion to say, hey, this is happening. And then you can measure the effectiveness of that with how many appointments you get booked. That's an easy one. Retail SMS is the most common that people are familiar with. And that's just, we send a promotion about a new product we've got. We've got a link to buy it. Maybe we've got a nice image or graphic to complement it to make you really want to learn more or see it. How many people click the link and then purchase the product, and you can track that through a UTM or custom URL. Online reviews is another one that's actually really powerful. So, of course, the more online reviews you get, the higher you will rank in search results. The more customers you'll get, the more likely people will be to choose you than a competitor. All the good things. And so, another good one is to say, okay, hey, if we text a customer after we've completed a service or a project and ask them for a review, what star ratings are we getting? How many reviews are we getting completed? Those are good metrics.
Okay. And you mentioned putting links or UTMs specifically, but you have a character limit in text. How are you using links within text in order to track the UTMs? I think that's a brilliant strategy.
Yeah, good question. So 2 parts. One, there is a character limit that's created by the carriers where you can have 160 standard characters within a standard SMS message. Practically speaking, though, the limit is more like 1,600 characters because we do, and I'm blanking on the term, but basically we do this thing behind the scenes where we can join messages together. And so, on your billing, it would say or show that you sent multiple text or multiple SMS segments is the technical term. But you sent multiple texts, but it all came through as one message. So it just looks like one cohesive message to the customer. So it gives you a little more room, gives you more, you can add more meat to it if you need it. We do recommend shorter messages. They tend to be punchier and more effective anyway. Nobody wants to get a novel in a text, right?
Right.
But as long as you're just keeping track with your usage, it's a non-issue.
Do you recommend using link shorteners in messages, or is that something that may get your text message blocked?
Yeah, it's more likely to get you flagged as potential for spam. And if there's a lot of little loopholes here, like or not loopholes necessarily, but a lot of sort of strange trends or tendencies. So one thing is if you end a message with a link, it's likely to be a red flag to carriers. However, if you put any characters after your link, like a thank you or even a period or something, then you bypass that little red flag. Shortened URLs do look a little fishier than the full length URLs to carriers, because think about if you're a consumer, you can't tell what's on the other side of that shortened URL. Whereas you could, if it had the full URL showing, you could see it's textrequest.com as opposed to, bit.ly/1245C12, so people pick up on that. But in most cases, if you've got opt-in traffic and you aren't sending to thousands and thousands of customers, and if your business is registered with the carriers already, which is standard practice now, you should be okay.
Yeah, registration is something that is, I think, maybe taken too long to come about, but I think that's a really good change in just helping keep the traffic high quality, where people are identified. Can you tell us a little bit about the registration process and what that's like for a company? Is it quick? Does it take a long time?
Yeah, so the quick answer, and this has a little bit of bias through text request because we've just created a process for it, and this is what works for us and how we do it. And so, whenever you create your account or you set up a new phone number for texting, we now just require you to submit your information in order to register. And then we just take that information and we go to the players that be and register for you. And there's a few steps in it, so you have to register your brand, and then you have to register a campaign, is what they call it. And so, there's a couple pieces of that are pretty near instant. And then there's a couple of pieces that, depending on who you go through, or your provider is, it can take, a few weeks. And everybody in the industry is trying to speed that time up.
Sure.
But currently there is a little bit of a lag. So, but I guess actually to come back, for us, if you do share your information for us to submit for you or register for you, that's all you have to do. You don't have to worry about anything technical or behind the scenes. We'll just, you'll just be registered when you're registered. And if there's a hiccup along the way, we'll let you know.
It's helpful. It's always good to have a partner that knows how to do that and can lead you through the process instead of trying to figure it out by yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, what other tips or tricks are there that you can share that help with deliverability or help with engagement?
Yeah, one, and a lot of these also will apply to other marketing tactics and other channels. But one is to send people messages that they want to receive. So it helps that they opt in. That shows interest, right? And then send them what they opted in for. So if you have let's say you set up a keyword, and the keyword is text demo to get a quick demo of our product, and then you have an auto response to them that gives them a link to schedule a time, to see a demo, let's just say. And then you start sending them marketing messages later, like, hey, look at these new features we have. Hey, we're doing another event over here. Register for it. They may not want those messages, right? So that may hurt your engagement, and that could have a downstream impact on your deliverability. Versus if you're sending them things they actually want, it looks good, everything's healthy. Other things that are smaller, but shorter messages are helpful. Don't use all caps, that's a flag. Don't use $signs, that's another flag. 1 or 2 emojis are okay. Excessive emojis will get you flagged. But it really just you can kind of use the golden rule for it. Send text as you wish you would be texted. If it's something that you would want to interact with, then your customer's probably gonna have a good time too.
That's really, really good advice. How have you seen marketing evolve over the last few years with multiple channels? And it seems like we're supposed to be, as business owners, supposed to be everywhere. How does that work? And what have you seen has worked? Is it really focusing on one channel and then adding some other ones? Or, what have you seen the most success in?
It's tough because I've seen all of it work. One of the beauties and one of the downfalls of marketing is that there's so many ways to do it well. There's so many ways to mess it up, but there's so many ways to do it well. And I think the bigger thing I've seen in line with what you were just saying is individuals building personal brands, kind of on the backs of their companies on a particular platform and growing there. And so for a while, I work in software, and so I pay a lot of attention to other people in software. And so, for a lot of time, or for a long time there, it was building on Twitter. And then you started to see LinkedIn growing really as a place to grow a brand. And you started to see these people who had grown significant followings on Twitter come over to LinkedIn. Maybe even before that, Medium was the hot new thing, for blogging. And anyway, I remember spending a lot of time there. So I've seen that, but it's basically been, I think the common thread throughout that and what worked before and what's still working and what will continue to work has been content marketing there, right? So you are sharing something valuable and interesting to people who aren't looking to buy a product right then, but something that can get their attention, kind of meet them where they are and bring them just an inch closer to buying your product. And then the next day you bring them another inch closer, and you keep doing that. And then it turns into, social selling and brand building and all of these things. And so that's something I've seen trending heavily the last, couple of years that I see will continue to go forward. And there are lots of other, trends going on and things that will work. But that's just top of mind.
Well, what's one misconception about SMS marketing that you've come across, and how can you debunk that?
I would say the one common misconception is that it is all impersonal blast marketing. And that was something we kind of raged against for the first 4 or 5 years this company was in existence, because we would say, yeah, we are, we're a text messaging software. And they would say, oh, well, I don't have anything to promote. And it's kind of a fair objection, but it also misses the mark, where it is any channel, it's just a distribution channel. And so whether or not you need to use it or be there, whether it's SMS or TikTok or anything else, whether or not you need to be there is, do you have a core audience who is there, who you could reach there, who would be receptive to a message you have? And I think a lot of people think they don't have anything to market or promote when they really do. I used accountants as an example earlier, and that's an easy one that stands out because, you would never think of an accountant marketing or promoting themselves through text. Like, what would they say? And yet there are things they can do all the time. It can be, hey, tax season is here. We'll help you get your taxes done. Or it can be, hey, we've expanded into wealth management, which is something a lot of accounting firms do. Or we can do, fractional CFO for your business. All these different things, even reviews. I saw one, I love this example. It was for Black Friday. Instead of trying to promote a product or anything, they just said, hey, we're going to do a tailgate. There's a football game or a basketball game. Of course, there always is. And so they said, hey, we're going to do a tailgate, in the parking lot and inside our offices. Come on out. And I think that's a fun example of just how to bring people together. It's marketing, it's promotional, but it doesn't feel salesy, but you are bringing your clients closer to you and you're bringing your clients together, and that always has a downstream impact.
Absolutely. That's a great use. And it's using it to build that relationship. You're creating that community. And so it's not, marketing at people, but it's inviting them into your world, and you're, just like you're texting a friend.
Exactly. What's the line? Oh man, great marketing doesn't feel like marketing. And that's a good example there.
Well, no, the broader scope, you talk a lot about, B2B marketing strategy, your top B2B marketing strategy voice on LinkedIn. So everybody should be following Kenneth for sure. And he puts out great content. What are some marketing strategies that you could share, specifically B2B?
So I'll say we target small business primarily, and then some enterprise, but primarily small business. And so things for us and that I would recommend are different than if you're targeting, the Fortune 500 or the Global 2000, and you really need to focus heavily on account-based marketing there. And in-person events and kind of smaller crowd dinners are really effective there. For us, things that worked have been much more around content creation. So we know there's an active audience of people searching for, a solution to connecting with customers, to texting. They have a lot of questions about it. And so there's a ton of content that we can create, make sure it ranks for Google. We can complement that with search marketing, and then, distribute it on LinkedIn or pick another channel, through email even. And so that can work really well that's worked really well for us, and I would recommend that to anybody. And then it's just, it's kind of following what I said a little bit earlier, find a place where you have a core audience who would be receptive to hearing a message from you that you can afford to get a message out through. That might be an association. It might be radio. You've got to do a little fact finding there, but if you hit those criteria, you'll be okay.
That's really smart. And for those that are targeting maybe, something bigger, you said, smaller events, things like that. Tell me more about that as a strategy.
Yeah, Well, the psychology background coming in here, right?
Love that.
Yeah. Well, executives, want to feel special, right? And so if you go to a larger conference, for instance, there will always be these little side events going on where, the C-suite and the founders and the VPs of whatever are invited. Not everybody, not all the attendees, but just these select, customers or prospects. And part of it is because they control the purse strings and they're making the decisions. But part of it is because they want to feel taken care of. They want to feel appreciated by their vendors. And, if you as a vendor can tap into that emotion and also provide a service or a product that is quality and, meets the promise you make, it helps you build a good relationship. And so in that relationship, you can turn into a customer, you can turn into referrals, you can turn into a resource whenever you have questions of your own. Like, hey, I just need to learn more about this, or we're going through this challenge. Can you help me out? So those are really good there. And typically, in the enterprise, your deal size is large enough that you can afford to have a small, very nice dinner or a smaller event and still be profitable on the account.
Yeah, that's great. So one of the things that you wrote about a little while back was marketing mistakes and things that we all do in marketing. What are some common marketing mistakes you've seen, and particularly in B2B?
I think the most common one is shutting off a campaign or a strategy before it's really had time to flourish. Marketing is a bit of a paradox, or maybe a juxtaposition, we'll say, where you've got to create quick wins. Like, you have to be able to show that what you are doing is working. And also, it often takes a long time for what you're doing to prove results. And so there's a lot of push and pull, with that. And so I think, or I see a lot of people or a lot of companies start something that really could have legs, and they don't see revenue coming directly from it in the first week or month or quarter. And so they just cut it. And sometimes, maybe it's not working and that's a good call. But in a lot of cases, it just takes longer to see something grow. Content marketing and SEO, or search engine optimization, is a good example there. Rule of thumb is it takes 6 months to start to see results. Not to see a huge impact, but to just start to see something. And there are plenty of things you can do to speed that timeline up, but it takes time. It really, I'm blanking on a word here. This keeps happening today, apparently, but getting really deep into a particular association, let's say, is another good one, because once you're the go-to, you're the go-to. Everybody comes to you, and it's so easy to get new business, but it takes a long time to build that reputation and establish yourself in that way. So anyway, cutting things off too soon is maybe the biggest one. Another one is doing something that you think is good to do, but that doesn't fit perfectly in line with your company's number one goal. And in one phrasing or another, it's something we probably all see. A lot of marketing teams do this, where you say, well, we need to be doing XYZ because it's good to do, or because it has these benefits. But you've got to be able to tie those benefits back to whatever your stated primary company goal is. And usually that's a revenue milestone, or it might be a number of customers to acquire. But it's not enough to do something because it's good for the brand or builds up your reputation if you can't also parlay that into sales conversation started. So there's a little bit of planning and connecting the dots that a lot of marketing teams miss, that ends up resulting in a lot of frustration. And sometimes it's just, the solution is just taking a little bit of time to work with your senior staff or executives or another department and say, hey, what are we really working towards here? Or what's the guiding light? And sometimes, you won't get a very clear answer, and you just need to set one as a marketing team, as a department. You just need to say, hey, we're going to target 30% revenue growth this year, let's say, or we're going to target bringing in X number of customers or improving our average contract value by 10%, the first half of this year. Something like that, something that nobody's going to be upset with you if your target is more money usually. So
Right.
that's a safe bet. But that's another common mistake I see.
So how do you know when to stick and when to give up on a strategy?
Man, that's $1 billion question.
Yeah.
I will give my answer in what I use, but I will also say that I am open to ideas here. So mine is we have for a strategy that we are starting, we will say here's the objective, here's what we're trying to accomplish, and then here's a metric that we will use to measure it and determine whether or not we accomplished it. So if the goal is to increase referrals, well then we have a target of X number of referrals that we can track as a referral in a quarter. And so we'll have the objective, have the metric, and then we'll have outlined steps along the way, things that we will need to do, we believe, in order to meet the metric and accomplish the objective. But what we will also have is a little defined signals. And so maybe we don't hit X number of referrals. That was our target. But we did hit, 25% of that, let's say.
Okay.
And so something in there is working. Or maybe it is, I'll go back to content marketing because that's maybe an easier one. We aren't seeing 100,000 new people coming in through organic search, but we are seeing, double-digit month-over-month increases. So we're seeing, steady improvements there. Okay, so that tells us this is working. This is going in the right direction. We had a bad estimate on our initial timeline. Sometimes that bad estimate's costly. Sometimes you can just roll with it and it's fine. But that's a signal that says this is still working. So we look for things like that. And if it, occasionally it will be something where we can see we can get traction, but maybe it's too expensive. So video ads are a good example where, we could, for one campaign I have in mind, we saw we got engagement. People were watching the ad, which is great. We saw that was a signal. We saw that people were coming to our website from the video. That was another signal. That was great. We saw that they were having a good experience on our website, which we judged by time on page. That was another good signal. But we were seeing a too low of a number converting into qualified leads or who started sales conversations and then purchased. And so, by some measure, it looked like it was working, but ultimately it wasn't, or it was like it was working, but it wasn't working in a cost-effective way for us. And so I don't remember what the timeline was for measuring this, but we eventually had to cut that.
Yeah. That's really interesting. Really, what is the goal and defining success? I mean, going viral is great, and getting a lot of engagement is good. But if it doesn't result in sales, did it work? And I think that's where what you say. Really understanding what the goal of the campaign is, and make sure that that's well defined, so you know what the outcome is you're looking for to decide. Are we moving closer to that, or are we not moving closer to that?
Absolutely. And really, something that was very helpful for me and our team was implementing the OKRs framework for goal setting. So objections and key results. If you're listening and you're not familiar, just Google John Doerr OKRs, those 3 letters, and it'll pop up. Some people push back against it because they aren't able to see the kind of results they want from it. In our case, it's been very helpful for keeping the team unified and on target. So we started that 2.5 years ago, maybe, and it's made a big impact.
Oh, that's really, really good. One of the things that you wrote about in the mistakes was talking about the buying process. You alluded to it there in grouping customers, not just by what they do or the industry, but how they buy. And sometimes that's the same within a specific target market. Sometimes it could be different. But how do you how do you put those together? Where you say, they buy this way, and so we want to market in a certain way, or maybe they have a different type of buying process, and so we want to market to them differently.
Yeah, great question. I'm going to oversimplify this because there will be outliers to this. It's not as straightforward. But in a perfect world, you're doing two things, or three things really. One, you're talking to customers every day. And if you as a marketer aren't talking to customers, you are at least talking to your sales and service teams to understand what people are saying. And those sales and service teams are asking questions like, how'd you hear about us? What stood out? What are you really interested in? What do you need in order to buy? What do you need in order to onboard and launch this product? Different things like that. So you're able to crowdsource that info. And over time, you can kind of put people into different buckets. You hope everyone's pretty close to the same. There's probably going to be some differences. And so you start to put people into buckets and look for common criteria. Next, something that was really helpful for us was heat map and user tracking on our website. So we could see the steps people were going through on our website. And in our case, it was basically they come to the homepage to see what exactly is it that we do. Then they look at our pricing page to see if we're even worth researching further, like are we in budget or what they're used to. Then they go to our demo page because they want to see what the product looks like. We've gone back and forth with actually having a demo on the website versus just asking people to schedule. Honestly, we haven't really seen a difference in results between the two, which I found, right? There are probably some other factors at play, but it's been really interesting to not see something so clear. But then people will poke around a few product pages because they want to look for a particular detail. Like, can you do this specific thing? Can I see a screenshot of this? Things like that. And they'll come back to, pricing and check for stuff. And maybe they'll reach out. Maybe they'll take a next step. Maybe they leave. So the user testing there was really helpful for us. Or user tracking there, excuse me. And then looking at aggregates in our analytics, just seeing where's traffic coming from. Can we match that to an action that was taken, like a demo scheduled? And when we ask people in the demo form how you heard about us, does it actually line up with what we're seeing where they came from? And a lot of times it wouldn't. And that would, open up questions that we would have to track down, but that led to us learning more. So those are the three things really. And you start to do all of that for a while and you get a really clear idea on how your buyer buys. And a lot of people just don't take the little bit of extra effort in a few of those places to get the extra details so that they can communicate and market more effectively.
That makes sense. You're really doing the things that most companies are not. And I love the alignment, though, of doing that and really understanding how someone buys, what their process is, not forcing them into your sales process, but matching their buying process and inserting yourself into that so that you're really leading them.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of other pieces to it that, I haven't covered. Like I've really just focused here on what happens on the website or once they talk to us. There are other things that matter. Where do they go to for comparisons or for recommendations? Do they go to a particular review platform? Do they go to a particular community or an association forum or something like that? Who are the influencers for their market? That's another good question to ask. But just the more you learn from it and read into it, the stronger you'll be.
Super helpful. Well, where can people learn more about you and about Text Request and about Burke Bits?
Yeah. So Text Request is textrequest.com. Everything's there. You can always reach a real person if you want to talk to us or not. It's up to you. You can text us or call us or email us from there. For me, you can just look me up on LinkedIn. I look like this, Kenneth Burke. And then for Burke Bits, you can get to that from my LinkedIn page or just go to burkebits.com and it's all there.
We'll make sure to link all of that in the show notes. And like I said before, everybody should subscribe as it is absolute gold, the marketing information and insights that Kenneth shares. Really good stuff.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate you being on SaaS Fuel. It's a great conversation. Very helpful.
I'm glad to hear it. Yeah, I really enjoyed it, although I did most of the talking. So thank you.
Thanks again, Kenneth, for coming on the show and sharing your insights and resources. You can learn more about Kenneth and Text Request at textrequest.com. As always, all links, highlights, resources, and full show notes are available at saasfuel.com. And remember, we have full episode shorts, training, outtakes, and quite a bit more on our YouTube channel. So don't forget to check that out. And leaders help leaders. And this week, you can do a 2-for-1 by sharing the podcast with a friend. They will absolutely appreciate it, and so do I. That's one of the big ways that we grow is by leaders turning other leaders onto the podcast. So thank you for sharing. Everyone who shares this week gets a complaint converter. It's a device that turns every customer complaint into a compliment, powered by the most advanced positivity algorithms and a little pinch of AI thrown in there. Your feedback form just got a lot more glowing. Join us next Tuesday where we have 3-time founder Mike Adams. He is founder and executive chairman of Grain.com. We'll talk about startup wins, losses, crazy acquisitions, go-to-market, and generative AI. And then next week on our SaaS Fuel Expert Series, we have Becky Lawler. She is the brains behind Redpoint Content. We'll be talking about how to use original research to create customized B2B insights that build your authority and your audience. So I will see you next time. And as always, enjoy the journey.
Thanks for listening to SaaS Fuel. Full show notes for each episode, which includes a summary, key takeaways, quotes, and any resources mentioned, are available at saasfuel.com. Be sure to follow and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you're enjoying the content and getting value from these episodes, please leave us a rating and review at ratethispodcast.com/SaaSfuel. We'll be sure to read these out on future episodes.